In the quiet courtyard, time drifts like fallen leaves as Li Hao and Bian Rushu stay hidden away after the temple fair, waiting for fate to knock. Each day, Bian Rushue's blade dances through the fading autumn, her sword intent whispering through the crisp air, careful not to sever what warmth remains. Her clear eyes flicker with a fleeting sorrow when she sees the empty pavilion where he once sat before returning to her silent training. Elsewhere, Li Hao's days slip by among chess games with the Fifth Master and weathered books in the Listening Rain Tower, his thoughts tangled with the past and the promise of what's to come. As the final 10 days near, he lifts his old sketchpad, hoping to catch the last breath of autumn's fall when Li Yuanzhao bursts in. Breathless Xianxia seeks him out, her father's blessing in hand, ready to learn the way of the sword. Li Hao pauses, memories flickering like drifting leaves, then meets Yuanzhao's eyes, as if asking, should the thread be picked up once more? As the quiet days slip by in the fading courtyard, the chill of late autumn hung in the air, waiting for fate to unfold. Beyond Ruxu, her blade sharp, yet her heart distant, danced alone beneath the falling leaves, seeking not the strike, but the spirit within the sword. Her loneliness hidden beneath fleeting glances at the empty pavilion where Li Hao once sat. In the depths of the Li Ancestral Hall, Li Hao wandered between chessboards and scrolls, his calm masking the weight of the coming days. As only 10 days remained before the destined confrontation, a sudden arrival shattered the stillness. Li Yuanzhao, breathless and anxious, bearing news that stirred the quiet heart of the story. Ren Xian, once a fleeting presence beside him in distant Kangyu, now returned, asking to learn the sword from Li Hao himself. A forgotten promise reignited, a choice once left unanswered now calling him again. And so, beneath the thin veil of autumn's last breath, destiny's threads tightened once more. Would Li Hao answer? Ren Xian, captivated by the youth whose name now echoed across Qingzhou, is astonished to find Li Hao sketching calmly rather than cultivating. Clad in white, serene and elegant, he defies her expectations of relentless training. Determined, she declares her wish to learn the strongest sword art of the Li family and pledges her lifelong loyalty. Li Hao, surprised by her conviction, questions her readiness and whether her father approves. Ren affirms both, clutching her sword with resolve and a dream to surpass all limits. With a quiet smile, Li Hao reflects that even immortality may not be as eternal as it seems. Li Hao warns Ren Xian that once she joins the Li family, there's no leaving, not even abandoning martial arts can break the bond, only death. His gaze cuts into her like a blade, testing her resolve. Though shaken, she refuses to retreat, clinging to her sword in determination. Impressed, Li Hao accepts her as his sword attendant. He instructs her to sign a servitude contract and learn the rules of the Divine General Mansion. When she eagerly asks to begin training, he agrees to teach her one sword technique, encouraging slow reflection and questions. Her joy is immediate, and she offers her own sword for him to begin. No need. Li Hao turned, lifting the brush beside the inkstone, then let slip a whisper of sword chi that sliced the pond like silk under moonlight, leaving the surface split, yet the reeds untouched. For a heartbeat, the water forgot how to heal, and the hush it left behind pinned Li Yuanzhao and Ren Xian where they stood swordsmen themselves, yet his ease felt like a realm beyond reach. Brother Hao! Li Yuanzhao found his voice, eager as a child at the gates of a shrine. Brother Hao! Teach me too! Li Hao barely glanced back. The manual in Listening Rain Tower read it. Ask me when you fail to grasp it. With that, Li Yuanzhao's grin split wide as dawn. He bowed away, clutching borrowed hope. Ren Xian, though, lingered by the water's edge, her eyes tracing the invisible line the sword chi left behind. Days spilled forward like drifting leaves. In the hush of Listening Rain Tower, Li Hao read alone or drifted in thought beneath the courtyard's bare tree, where Ren Xian practiced her blade in quiet rhythm. He corrected her stance with a nod here, a word there, letting her flaws chip away like stone under rain until mastery felt less like a goal and more like fate awakening. Standing beneath brittle branches, Li Hao watched the girl shape her path, stroke by stroke while beyond the tree. Another pair of eyes flickered, measuring the scene that autumn had claimed as its own. In the tranquil yet watchful Divine General Mansion, whispers had long spread that this girl was no ordinary servant. She was the sword attendant of Li Hao, born of Grandmaster lineage. Yet in such a hallowed place, where noble bloodlines were countless and swordsmanship abundant, her background stirred little awe. Beyond Ruxu, herself a swordswoman of peerless skill, recognized the girl's delicate technique, but deemed it far from a true threat to her own mastery. With little more than a passing thought, she let her gaze drift elsewhere. But just then, a quiet moment unfolded between autumn's breath and human reflection. Beyond Ruxu noticed Li Hao, his dark eyes fixed not on foes or future glories, but on a barren tree stripped of its leaves. Brother Hao, what are you watching? She asked, puzzled. His reply, calm yet distant, cut through the stillness like a blade through mist. The wind. To her, the wind was unseen, only felt a thing that stirred the senses but could never be caught by the eye. But Li Hao, with that distant clarity, smiled faintly and spoke. It is too light, too weak to carry fallen leaves, let alone shake this old tree. His words hung in the autumn air, delicate yet heavy with meaning. For a moment, they both stood within that quiet void where swordsmanship met philosophy. But silence shattered in an instant. Thunderous hooves rolled like distant drums, breaking through the mansion's calm as a cavalcade of riders surged recklessly through the outer courtyard. Bian Ruche's heart stirred with unease. Even in a place where warriors dwelled and horses ran, this wild, disorderly charge spoke of unrest yet to come. As the final days slipped by, Li Qianfeng's return turned the Divine General Mansion into a restless hive of visitors swarming Shuihua courtyard to pledge silent allegiance, each step echoing old grudges and deeper schemes. On the eve of reckoning, Li Tiangang led his mother, the reclusive Chen Hefeng Li Hao's grandmother, and hidden link to the ancient Chen line down from her 2 decades of prayers on Wangyu Mountain, stirring dormant ties and gathering the clan under the moonlit Green Lotus courtyard. Here, amidst polished halls and ancestral shadows, Li Hao stood face to face with Li Qianfeng for the first time. The elder's narrowed gaze measuring blood and worth as the 3rd generation watched, unseen yet burdened by the same fractured legacy now drawn tight like a blade, poised to cut through tangled fates. As the clock ticks down, the Divine General Mansion stirs with unrest and anticipation. Visitors flood the Shuihua courtyard, where whispers of family ties and hidden ambitions fill the air. On the eve of destiny, Li Tiangang descends deep into the mountains, guiding out a figure long forgotten by time, his mother, Chen Hefeng, the silent matriarch who once birthed the Li family's might. Her return shakes the old walls, drawing together generations of the Divine General Mansion beneath the fading light of Green Lotus courtyard. Here, amidst solemn rituals and tangled grudges, the 2nd and 3rd generations gather, each face a mask of pride, doubt, or hope. And then they meet Li Hao and Li Qianfeng too. Fates entwined yet distant, their first confrontation crackling with unspoken challenge. Qianfeng, arms folded and gaze sharp, sizes up his 7th uncle's son, recalling only vague childhood shadows. Around them, the heirs of the Li family stand silent, none catching his cold, calculating eye. In this storm of legacy and longing, the stage is set for dragons to rise or fall. Li Wushuang, once seen as a threat, now stands small before a scrutinizing gaze, barely grasping the edges of the divine travel. Real insignificant compared to the silent storm rising behind Li Hao's eyes, a depth too vast to measure. The whispers of Qingzhou drift farther, carrying his name like a hidden blade. When Li Mingguang and Li Sibei appear, soldiers draped in years and rank their power carves the air, yet fails to press down Li Hao's calm. Mingguang's polite challenge, eyes narrowed in curiosity, meets only the faint shadow of the youth's smile, unspoken, unshaken. Amid ancient halls and heavy names, this famous sword called Eternal Night gleams between rival bloodlines and vows half kept, waiting for the strike that will split the old from the new. In the quiet before the storm, a long-anticipated meeting finally unfolds. Li Hao, the youth of hidden depths, stands before his elder cousin for the first time. Mingguang, hardened by years at the frontier and shattered by memories of a fallen uncle, weighs the boy's unseen power. That uncle, a legend once brighter than the stars, had left an unhealable wound when fate stole him away 14 years ago, leaving Mingguang drinking beneath the cold skies, punished yet unbroken. Now, facing Li Hao's calm yet impenetrable presence, Mingguang's battle-honed instincts recognize a legacy reborn, yet different cool as a passing breeze, quiet but sharp. With a wry smile, Mingguang breaks the tension, acknowledging the boy's concealed cultivation, while beside them, Li Qianfeng's aura slices the air like a half-drawn blade, tension crackling as past, present, and destiny align in this fleeting encounter beneath the crimson leaves. Under the drifting glow of crimson leaves, Li Hao lifts his gaze to his grandmother, her silver hair neat like threads spun by time, her features worn yet gentle. Sorrow lingering behind calm eyes that once dreamed of sons returning from distant frontiers. In this quiet courtyard where vows and lineage weigh heavier than swords, Mingguang bows low before the one who held him as a child, her words brushing his shoulders like a final blessing. Do not chase fleeting glory, for the old wounds of their family have bled enough. Around them, soft tears shimmer in the eyes of those who remain. A silent promise echoing through generations that beyond broken oaths and vanished sons, what matters is the breath that stays, the lives that endure, and the path that still remains beneath the falling leaves. Under the dim light of the ancestral hall, Li Hao gazed silently at his grandmother, her silver hair neatly combed, her face aged yet graceful, the traces of her youthful beauty still lingering beneath time's touch. Her presence was like a quiet mountain, weathered yet unyielding. Across from him, the old matriarch measured her grandchildren with eyes heavy from loss and longing. Memories flickered behind her gaze visions of sons who had fallen at distant frontiers, their laughter now mere echoes in her dreams. Her heart bore scars of midnight prayers and silent farewells beneath the cold stars of Wangyu Mountain. As she softly called Mingguang forward, her voice trembled yet gentle, asking nothing but for them to live, to return whole. The weight of glory and bloodshed hung heavy in the air, but in that fleeting moment, the battlefield faded, leaving only family, fragile and enduring. Silent tears glistened in the corners of those present, young hearts stirred by sorrow they barely understood. And in Zhang Xianer's distant gaze, a quiet question lingered. How many of yesterday's heroes ever truly came home? Those spirited youths have now become the fathers and husbands of today's children, their lives bound by unseen threads of duty and memory. Li Mingguang's heart quivered as he bowed deeply, whispering, "Your grandson will remember." Chen Hefeng's eyes softened as she called forward Li Sibe, her gaze drinking in the once little girl, now a figure of quiet strength with familiar brows and eyes that echoed her elder brother's spirit. The sight of her grandchildren faces tender, yet already marked by distinction, brought a sigh to her lips, as though seeing ghosts of the past and the present. Her eyes finally rested on Li Hao. When she asked softly who he was, he stepped forward, voice steady. "I am." "Greetings to Grandma." She beckoned him closer, her gaze searching him deeply before murmuring, "You look so much like your mother." Li Hao's dark eyes flickered but held silent. Then, with a faint smile, she continued, "It's our first meeting, and I heard you favor the sword, so I shall give you one." At her word, a servant brought forth a sword box. The air shifted as the box was opened, and even the stoic Li Tiangang stood abruptly, stunned. "Mother, this was Uncle Nine's." The name hung in silence, as Zhang Xianer's eyes narrowed, and Chen Hefeng caressed the box, her voice carrying both sorrow and affection. "Indeed. This is Eternal Night, one of the world's 10 famed swords, and now it is yours. I've heard you wield a blade, so take this, and do not let its legacy fade." As the black sword box changed hands, Li Hao's pulse quickened. This was no ordinary weapon. It had once pierced the hearts of dark spirits at the Four Stands realm. Though its deepest power slumbered, awaiting a higher awakening, its edge alone could drive back shadows and sever falsehoods. That was enough for now. "Thank you, Grandma," he murmured, voice quiet but weighty. Chen Hefeng smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting memories of another Li Junye, long gone yet mirrored in this boy's silent resolve. Around them, tension brewed. Li Qianfeng's face turned grim, and Lu Yuerong's smile cracked at the edges. But all eyes remained fixed on Li Hao, and the sword box resting in his arms like fate itself. Then, with a shift as gentle as falling leaves, Chen Hefeng turned to Qianfeng, offering Buddhist scrolls in her serene tone. "You've cultivated on Mount Wuliangthes may aid your path, but beside a blade touched by legend, sacred words felt oddly hollow." He lowered his gaze, masking his frustration as he bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Grandma." Her smile was calm yet sharp, like a blade hidden in silk. One of these scriptures holds the great compassionate hand, a supreme Buddhist technique. Master it, and not only will your path in cultivation deepen, but even your sword arts will ascend. His heart trembled, delight flashing through his composed facade. "Thank you, Grandma." With a mere wave, she dismissed him and the others, gifting each grandchild in turn, though the differences in favor were subtle. They did not go unnoticed. As the crowd drifted from Green Lotus Courtyard, she quietly summoned several women, questioning them on the mansion's inner affairs and instructing Lu Yuerong to summon the Bodhisattva who now resided below Mount Wuliang. Time flowed on, and the city of Qingzhou pulsed with new life under her presence. Then came the day of the true dragon's decree. Outside the Divine General Mansion, carriages crowded the streets, banners flapped, and nobles from 19 provinces gathered to offer formal congratulation. The threshold of the mansion nearly wore thin beneath the endless procession of dignitaries, officials, and curious bystanders. Among them were relatives of the Liu family, their fortunes risen through marriage and political acumen, their civil ranks gleaming like polished jade. Earls and marquises arrived too, each visit a silent statement of alliance or inquiry, while emissaries from the other great Divine General mansions came merely to observe, weighing the strength and aura of the Li family's chosen true dragon. Outside the courtyard, the air thrummed with voices, wheels, and ambition ceaseless. Vibrant storm of destiny gathering at the gates. Basking in the quiet sun, Li Hao lounged in an old recliner, a book of poetry half shielding his face until hurried footsteps broke the calm. Bian Rushu burst into the courtyard, trailed by none other than the Sword Saint himself. Jian Wudao, his presence as sharp as the sword he no longer needed to draw. 8 years had passed since that figure last stepped onto these grounds, and now he returned, not with words but with unspoken weight. Li Hao narrowed his gaze. He had never asked for this. Yet here they stood, master and disciples descending from the mountain, disrupting solitude with concern disguised as respect. Jian Wudao's eyes scanned the youth, no longer the child he once knew, but a calm storm waiting. Behind him, 4 disciples, all powerful in their own right, studied Li Hao with cautious curiosity. Bian Ruche smiled brightly, proud of her effort. "Brother Hao," she called out, unaware her gesture stirred more than gratitude. Rising slowly, Li Hao cast his poetry aside like a forgotten promise. Watching the figure who had once taken someone dear away, yet in the end, it was she who chose to leave. Who could he possibly blame? No one. Li Hao had already tamed the storm within his heart. With only a faint sigh, he let go of those restless emotions and, wearing a calm smile, cupped his fist in salute. "Swordsman, your grace remains unchanged." The swordsman paused, faintly surprised. "You still remember me?" Li Hao's reply carried the lightness of a drifting leaf. "With your peerless elegance, how could I forget?" The swordsman's eyes narrowed in subtle intrigue. He'd expected this youth to be either arrogant and wild, or cold and withdrawn, yet here stood someone like a breeze across the mountains, unburdened and free. "The Marquise's son. The Li family will soar again," the swordsman murmured. Their exchange ended, but his eyes fell to the black sword box held by the maid at Li Hao's side. As he had once said, a true swordsman sees the blade first, even among thousands, and here his gaze was caught by Eternal Night. "Ah, could this be Eternal Night?" he asked, a rare gleam in his eyes. "You've seen it before," Li Hao countered. The swordsman's voice held quiet regret. It shone briefly, but then faded into obscurity. Such a shame for a name like Eternal Night. It should have blanketed the heavens forever, known to all under heaven. Li Hao's gaze remained calm as he questioned, "Are you accusing my uncle Jian?" The tension was palpable, yet Jian Wudao hesitated, his silence betraying unspoken resentment. Once, he had demanded the sword now sealed away, believing its legacy deserved better than dust. But the years had passed, and grievances faded into formality. Li Hao, ever composed, spoke again, his words edged like tempered steel. "In 3 years, my uncle raised this sword from obscurity to renown. If he still lived, the world would know its name. Perhaps if Elder Jian had stepped beyond Sword Cottage to face the darkness outside, the blade might now be the finest of all." The sting of those words drew a shift in Jian's expression. His followers flinched as one barked, "Apologize to my master." But Li Hao only chuckled, unbothered. This was not their ground, it was mountain and river courtyard. Bian Ruche's anxiety rippled through the scene, caught between loyalties. Jian Wudao's voice grew cold. "You speak boldly, Li. Are you even worthy of the sword passed down to you?" Li Hao's reply came with a quiet smile. "This sword, forged from the world's rarest metals by the Li family, needs no outsider's judgment to define its bearer." In the quiet courtyard, a simple call from Bian Rushu echoed through the still air, her voice trembling with a distress that Li Hao could no longer ignore. His gaze softened as he looked at her, recognizing the weight of the years that had passed years, where the once bright and passionate girl who stood by him without hesitation was now a figure caught in the folds of time and destiny. Her resolve had once been as unwavering as the autumn leaves, but now, those same leaves lay scattered on the ground, unable to return to their branches. Time, much like the seasons, moved on. As Li Hao stood there, memories of the past began to stir, and with them, a growing realization that the future could not simply be a repetition of the past. The courtyard, the people, everything was changing. And yet, as figures hurried in from the inner courtyard, led by the ever-imposing Li Tian gang, Li Hao could sense the undercurrents of power, of old ties and unspoken debts. Jian Wudao, a figure whose presence carried both respect and challenge, arrived with an aloofness that only intensified the tension. His words, sharp and calculated, carried a hidden barb, and Li Tian gang, ever the diplomat, quickly attempted to smooth over the atmosphere. But there was more than just ceremony here. There were the remnants of broken oaths, forgotten loyalties, and the weight of what could have been. Even the reception, at first glance, was a test tone that Li Hao would navigate, not with the ease of the past, but with the growing clarity of a man who no longer sought to inherit a destiny, but to carve out his own. The powerful marshal, once a commanding force, now showed an unexpected politeness, which made Jian Wudao smile. With a graceful movement, he entered the courtyard, leaving Li Hao behind, his presence barely a concern. His disciples, following suit, understood the futility of engaging with someone younger, and chose not to escalate the situation, despite their underlying resentment towards the rising star of Qingzhou. After their departure, Bian Rushu, concerned, approached Li Hao. She questioned if he was angered, but he reassured her with a calm smile, dismissing any offense. She explained her master's serious devotion to the sword, his words harsh, but Li Hao remained unruffled, urging her to return to her master. As she left, Li Hao reclined once more, the warmth of the sun a comfort as he buried his face in a book of poetry. Nearby, Ren Xian fidgeted with the sword box, her senses still tingling from the Sword Saint's powerful aura, her heart racing. Li Hao, once just a promising youth, now finds himself standing before the world-renowned Sword Saint. The young man's calm, unwavering demeanor is a stark contrast to the fear and anxiety of those around him, particularly Ren Xian, who worries that his boldness will provoke a deadly response. Yet, her fears are unfounded. Within the Divine General Mansion, Li Hao is untouchable, not merely because of his skill, but because striking him would tarnish the mansion's reputation. Meanwhile, across the land, the lively Shuihua courtyard buzzes with excitement as guests fill every corner, but the atmosphere contrasts sharply with the cold, detached mood of the mountain and river courtyard. Amidst this, rumors swirl about Li Hao's ascent, with disciples at Tan Palace Academy eager to join the fray. But a decree from their leader, Song Yufeng, halts them. Li Hao's path, it seems, is his alone and no support is needed. This decree is a silent admission of his inevitable rise, and a reminder that Tan Palace Academy's involvement would only stir unnecessary trouble. In a moment of tension, a disciple attempts to challenge this reasoning, pointing to another's involvement, but Sunday Hongdian quickly silences him, reminding him that not all paths are equal. The true weight of these unfolding events lies not in the duels or the political games, but in the deeper journey of identity and destiny, where choices, not bloodlines, will shape the future. Two figures stood on a mountaintop, gazing at the distant mountains below, where the gathering of powerful forces signaled something significant. One turned to the other with a teasing smile. That child has drawn you so many pictures, yet you're not curious enough to see for yourself? The second figure, eyes sharp, glanced sideways, a hint of caution in her voice. If I go, wouldn't that drag Tan Palace into this? The first figure shrugged with a confident grin. I'm not afraid. The Li family is reasonable, and the child will secure the true dragon. Supporting him is nothing to fear. The second figure huffed, if you're not afraid, then why come here? The first figure chuckled softly. I've noticed you standing here every day, waiting. I thought you might be bored. The second figure rolled her eyes. I'm waiting for him to bring me pastries. I never said what you were waiting for. The first figure responded, and you can always go down to buy them yourself. The second figure shot back. I promised your ancestor I would stay here. With a sigh, the first figure said, why limit yourself to a promise for a lifetime? You've guarded this place for nearly 1,000 years and the Song family owes you. Isn't it time for something more? She fell silent for a moment, then asked, speaking of which, he's also a teacher at your Tan Palace. Why don't you go instead? In the midst of quiet tension, an unspoken understanding simmered between them as past promises and future decisions intertwined. In the heart of the mountain and river courtyard, amidst a gathering of influential figures, Li Hao's presence is as commanding as his legendary status, having reached the 15 Li realm by the age of 14. As he engages with Zhou Zheng, a tense yet respectful exchange unfolds, filled with the weight of unspoken admiration and shared history. Zhou Zheng, though younger, seeks the wisdom of Li Hao, a peer he looks up to, particularly after the memorable poetry recital at the brothel. As they discuss poetry in the serene setting, their conversation catches the attention of others, who, knowing the significance of Li Hao's reputation, begin to quietly mark his every interaction, fully aware of the political undercurrents surrounding him. Meanwhile, Li Tiangang, ever the social host, calls Li Hao to join the assembled guests, reinforcing the complex web of alliances and responsibilities that bind them all. The narrative seamlessly weaves between the personal and the political, with Li Hao standing at the crossroads of a legacy that is both a privilege and a burden. Create an image. Manhwa-style comic. Scene 1. Li Tiangang looks helplessly at his son Li Hao, a young man with focused black eyes and dark robes. Li Hao stands calm, seemingly unconcerned, while his father, slightly hunched, sighs with a distant expression. Scene 2. In the background, the inner courtyard is sparsely populated with guests seated at a few scattered tables. The Arhat, a middle-aged man in Xianxia, enters with a serene smile, exuding a powerful aura. Scene 3. Li Qianfeng, slightly astonished, rises to approach the Arhat, his face showing surprise and curiosity. Scene 4. Close-up of the Arhat, standing in the center, eyes scanning the courtyard as he speaks confidently, his posture exuding authority and grace. In an unexpected meeting of powerful figures, tensions rise as old rivals cross paths. Jian Wudao, the Sword Saint, faces a man from the north, a saber saint with whom he once sparred, but whose conflict remains unresolved. As they exchange words, a mysterious elder arrives, introducing himself as a member of the Monster Suppression Department. Though he claims no intention to interfere, only to enjoy a drink, the atmosphere grows heavy as the presence of these legendary figures stirs unease among onlookers. Jian Wudao's disciples, once confident in their master's support for Li Hao, are taken aback by the overwhelming strength of their opponents, realizing they are outnumbered. The tension deepens as another powerful figure is rumored to be on the way, adding to the already precarious balance of power. Li Tiangang, knowing that the odds are still against them, quietly sighs, revealing that even with the arrival of the Master of Heavenly Sword Mountain, the situation may still tilt in favor of the opposing side. In a world where power and influence are everything, Li Hao stands at a crossroads. Despite his remarkable cultivation, his lack of connections puts him at a disadvantage, especially when guests of incredible renown arrive, such as the Arhat from Mount Wuliang. The Arhat's arrival, bearing gifts from the infinite Buddha Lord, sends ripples through the gathered guests, catching even the most seasoned warriors by surprise. As the Arhat speaks of his master's support, the tension rises. The Master of Heavenly Sword Mountain, who had been expected to be the key player, seems outmatched. In the midst of this, Li Hao's father, Li Tiangang, feels the weight of the situation, realizing that while connections can sway outcomes, it is not always the deciding factor. The events unfolding suggest that this battle is more than just about power, it's about forging one's path in a world dominated by ancient forces and unseen bonds. In the midst of a tense atmosphere, Li Qianfeng graciously accepted the Buddha beads from the Arhat, giving a deep bow of respect. Just as the Arhat was about to speak, a voice interrupted, announcing the arrival of an imperial edict. The summons was for Li Hao, the son of the Li family. In an instant, the courtyard fell silent, all eyes turning toward the noble figure of Li Hao, seated with calm composure, while a young girl stood by with a large black sword box. Li Hao, caught off guard by the mention of Emperor Yu, stood up swiftly. His companions, Li Tiangang, Jian Wudao, and their disciples exchanged puzzled glances. Moments later, figures appeared at the entrance, led by trusted aides carrying the imperial decree. The old eunuch, an esteemed figure close to Emperor Yu, asked who Li Hao was. His presence in the courtyard, along with those from the Four Stands realm, caused a stir. Whispers filled the air as everyone recognized the old eunuch, a figure not only loyal to the former emperor, but also a force to be reckoned with in the courts. The tension in the air only grew thicker as the true weight of the summons unfolded. Li Hao's life took an unexpected turn when the imperial decree was personally delivered to him. The messenger, a respected eunuch, was known for delivering such decrees mostly to past generations, especially those from the era of Li Hao's grandparents or his father's time. But now, this honor was extended to Li Hao, a young member of the third generation. Stepping forward, Li Hao greeted the eunuch with the appropriate formalities, to which the eunuch Chu Ju Yue responded with a warm smile, recognizing the young man's exceptional talent and noble status. As an earl, Li Hao's brilliance was not just about his cultivation, but also his esteemed title, which overshadowed many of those present. The edict praised the Li family's historical merit, highlighting Li Hao's unmatched cultivation speed and his noble character traits that set him apart from common folk. As Chu Ju Yue spoke, the audience was captivated by the weight of the words. A rare blend of military praise for the family, recognition of Li Hao's virtues, and acknowledgement of the deep impact he would have on the Great Daiju. Despite the modest mention of his talent, it was clear to all that Li Hao's abilities and character were exceptional, signaling the dawn of a new era for the Li family. The Emperor's admiration for Li Hao was truly remarkable, a rare sight in history, given the high praise bestowed upon him. As Chu Ju Yue delivered the decree, Li Hao was overwhelmed, sensing the Emperor's deep recognition. The 6 words of praise in the decree not only solidified his standing, but also erased any doubts about his character. Grasping the decree, Li Hao humbly expressed his gratitude, knowing that his destiny had already been decided. Chu Ju Yue, with a playful smile, suggested enjoying some wine at Li's mansion to celebrate, to which Li Hao graciously agreed. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, the atmosphere shifted, as those who had supported Li Qianfeng began to feel uneasy. The tension was palpable, with those who had hoped to curry favor with the Li family growing uncomfortable. As Li Tiangang welcomed Chu Ju Yu, the scene illustrated the delicate balance of power and the shifting allegiances in this web of intrigue. As the prestigious gathering unfolded, Chu Ju Yue stepped forward with a smile, following Li Hao toward the honored guest seat, his presence commanding respect. Those around the table, including the disciples of the Sword Saint, stood as the power of the Four Stands realm was undeniable. The Sword Saint himself greeted Chu with a warm remark. hinting at his recognition of Chu's stature. Chu's smile deepened, acknowledging the Sword Saint's support for Li Hao, though he knew the true reason for the visit was personal, stemming from the disciple's request. The awkwardness lingered in Jian Wudao's expression as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Despite the subtle tension, Chu Ju Yue's charisma filled the room as everyone showed their reverence, acknowledging his status. He effortlessly urged them to sit, allowing the conversations to continue. As the edict from Emperor Yu made its appearance, curiosity swirled, especially when Li Qiangang questioned the relationship between Emperor Yu and his son. The tension was palpable. Was the Emperor's favor genuine or something deeper? Li Hao, himself puzzled, found his curiosity matched by those around him, setting the stage for a deeper exploration of loyalty, fate, and the secrets hidden beneath the surface. The scene, rich with power and unspoken bonds, was a mere prelude to the trials and revelations yet to come. Had he ever met Emperor Yu before? Was the old man he played chess with by the riverbank actually the Emperor, seated on the dragon throne? The idea seemed unlikely. Emperor Yu was renowned for his strategic mind, so his chess skills couldn't possibly be as poor as that old man's. Furthermore, it was said that Emperor Yu, in his prime, had a stature like a towering mountain, with a gaze that pierced the heaven-shet. The man he met was simply an old man. Watching the curious eyes around him, Chu Ju Yue couldn't help but chuckle internally. He had heard Emperor Yu left the imperial court a few days ago, but the emperor often took strolls on his own, sometimes with Chu Ju Yue and sometimes without. Naturally, he never asked about His Majesty's whereabouts. Now, having returned, Emperor Yu had tasked him with an errand, likely a sign that the emperor had visited this place before, but revealing the emperor's casual movements, that could bring trouble. As for the specifics, I'm not sure, Chu Ju Yue said with a smile. Perhaps it's out of respect for the ancestors of the Li family, or a result of hearing about the young lord's talents. In any case, congratulations to Marquis Xingwu for having such a promising son. The crowd nodded, considering it a reasonable explanation. After all, Emperor Yu had expressed his appreciation for the Li family, and there were whispers of his hopes for Li Hao to carry on the legacy of his renowned ancestor. Li Hao's reputation had already spread through Qingzhou City, making it unsurprising that the emperor might have shown interest. To have gained the emperor's favor is an honor for my son. I must thank His Majesty, said Li Tiangang, clearly caught off guard by this attention, despite Li Hao's difficult temperament. Chu Ju Yue merely smiled, saying nothing more. Jian Wudao's gaze lingered on Li Hao, his brow furrowing slightly, but he remained silent. The expressions of his four disciples were a mixture of concern and intrigue. With Emperor Yu's imperial decree in hand, Li Hao no longer needed the backing of their master to suppress Li Qianfeng's influence. The emperor's authority towered over all others. No one could rival him, not even the Buddha Lord or the true person of Gan Tao Pao. The emperor was the ultimate ruler of the mortal realm, a truth that could not be ignored. Bian Ruche's eyes sparkled as she observed the youth among the crowd, his calm and affable demeanor reminding her of the time when he had stood out even in the harshest of circumstances. Soon, the Bodhisattva of Immeasurable Mountain and other powerful figures from the Four Stands realm came to exchange greetings with Chu Ju Yue. After all, being part of Emperor Yu's inner circle, he was a figure they dared not offend. Despite the pleasantries, Lu Yue Rong couldn't hide the regret that gnawed at her, her fingers clenched so tight beneath the table that they nearly bled. She regretted not having poisoned Li Hao to death back then instead of just disabling his divine blood. Who could have known that the boy, even without his divine blood, would now be so strong and resilient? If his divine blood were ever awakened, he would undoubtedly surpass them all. Little did she know, the loss of his divine blood actually enhanced Li Hao's ability to refine his body, making him more formidable than ever. Zhang Haiping, sipping his wine, sighed, lamenting the futility of their presence here. Meanwhile, Zhang Yuguang, though maintaining a composed exterior, felt an unsettling gloom take root within. He thought he was supporting Li Qianfeng, but little did he know, this decision was a grave mistake. Others like Zhang Haiping and the Bodhisattva were formidable, but they were manageable. The real issue lay in the fact that he held an official position directly beneath the emperor. His actions had unknowingly placed him in opposition to the highest authority in the land. With a quiet apology to Madame Lu, he stood, excusing himself with the claim that he had urgent matters to attend to. As he left, he noticed the gaze of Chu Ju Yu and Li Tiangang, offering them a brief, respectful nod before departing. Lu Yue Rong, though maintaining a polite smile, could barely contain her simmering anger. Observing her, Bodhisattva Lin Wujing spoke with his usual calm, assuring her that the fate of Qianfeng was all that mattered now. Despite his composed demeanor, Lu Yue Rong couldn't shake her frustration, yet the secret information he'd shared provided some reassurance. While Li Hao's rapid cultivation was impressive, it was the depth of his mastery that truly mattered. In the midst of the bustling banquet, Li Qianfeng's calm words cut through the tension. his cold gaze briefly lingering on the young man across from him before retreating inward. Despite the lingering disturbance stirred by the imperial edict, the thought of proving the emperor wrong by capturing the true dragon was enough to spark satisfaction within him. Lu Yue Rong, her expression softened with a faint smile, listened intently as the evening unfolded. Elder Chen Hefang, making her entrance, greeted the guests with poised words, bringing order to the chaos. While others enjoyed their conversations, Li Hao, ever the pragmatic, continued to eat heartily, understanding the necessity of strength for what lay ahead. As discussions turned to his abilities, Jian Wudao carefully avoided mention of their past encounter, where he had hoped to take Li Hao as a disciple, only to be refused. Even so, Jian Wudao harbored no regrets, knowing well that Li Hao's path was never meant to be that of the sword. Meanwhile, Li Hao, satisfied from his meal, took a plate of food for his loyal companion, the little white fox, who had once roamed freely but now, in fear of his father, remained hidden away. The fox's hesitation to join the festivities mirrored the subtle yet powerful tension in the air as Li Hao began to understand the true weight of his father's presence. In this moment, amidst the food and fleeting words, the weight of choices, past and future, hung over him, shaping a destiny not yet fully realized. A sigh escaped him as he recognized the little creature's plight. Yet, he knew his responsibility to cherish and protect what was his. As the meal drew to a close, Chen Hefeng made her way forward, revealing the true feast of the Li family's true dragon. The crowd's eyes flickered between the two young men, anticipation building. A figure descended from the sky, the wind tugging at his white hair. It was Li Qingzheng, an elder of the Li family. His presence caused everyone to rise, acknowledging his stature. Even Jian Wudao, though still seated, could not suppress a more solemn gaze. Decades ago, though Li Qingzheng had lost the title of the true dragon to Li Tiangang's father, his prowess remained unmatched. However, time had mellowed him, transforming the once fearsome warrior into a refined, calm figure. With a simple nod to Chen Hefeng, their eyes met, but no words were exchanged. "Descendants of the Li family, step forward," he called. Li Mingguang, Li Sibei, and others responded without hesitation, followed by Li Hao and Li Qianfeng, who moved into the courtyard center. Those who wish to bear the Li family's legacy, to protect the common folk, step forward, Li Qingzheng commanded once more, eyes turned awaiting the next move. While the others stood still, Li Hao and Li Qianfeng took a simultaneous step forward. Just then, a commotion stirred from the back. At the autumn summit, the air was thick with tension as family and rivals alike gathered. Li Hao, at a pivotal moment in his journey, stood alongside his cousin, Li Qianfeng, each preparing to face a challenge that would test not only their abilities, but their very character. A minor disturbance occurred when Li Rumeng, the daughter of 8 Ant, took a bold step forward. Her actions, though brash, were quickly silenced by her father, 8 Uncle Li Fenghua. While the eyes of many were on her, her cultivation level at the initial soul succession realm was met with snickers, revealing the difference between youthful arrogance and true strength. The atmosphere grew heavier when Li Qingzheng, an imposing figure, urged the others to step back, narrowing the focus on the two cousins. It was clear that cultivation alone would not be enough to impress. Character, loyalty, and dedication to the family were the true tests. Li Hao and Li Qianfeng, without hesitation, confirmed their commitment to the family's cause, but a deeper test awaited. Li Qingzheng, after acknowledging Li Hao's character, called on Li Qianfeng, setting the stage for what was to come. Just as preparations began, a figure from the opposite side of the banquet, Lin Wujing, the bodhisattva from Mount Wuliang, rose, adding yet another layer of intrigue to this gathering of power and potential. The stage was set not only for a battle of strength, but for a clash of fates that would shape the future of the Li family. In a tense moment, a Buddhist chant fills the air as the elder quietly speaks of a sacred gift, the Qiankun Vajra Buddha beads, presented by the Buddha master to Li Qianfeng, symbolizing purity and potential. This gesture suggests that if Li Qianfeng becomes the Li family's true dragon, he would lead with great virtue, holding the world's well-being in his hands. But as Li Qingzheng ponders this, unease clouds his thoughts. The beads imply not just a blessing, but an alliance with Mount Wuliang, an influential force that could elevate the Li family's status. However, the true dragon's role must first be won on merit, not connections. Despite the Buddha's blessing, Li Qingzheng remains focused on his family's future and values talent over influence. The crowd watches in silence as he, with a knowing smile, declares that the Li family's legacy will rise above all others. He then shifts his gaze, ready to announce that only the best of this generation will stand as their true dragon, one who will outshine all rivals. This tense yet strategic moment reflects a legacy in the making, where the battle for power and honor intertwines with personal integrity and choice. Create an image, Manhwa-style comic. Scene 1. Li Qianfeng, a determined man with fierce eyes, stands tall in a battle stance, his dark robes billowing, and his aura surging around him like a storm. His hands glow with chi as power radiates from his chest, and a slight, controlled smirk shows on his face. In the background, a vast crowd watches in awe. Scene 2. His meridians are visibly expanding like glowing lines across his body, illustrating the intense surge of energy as his chi and blood rise. The light from the meridians reflects the intensity of the moment. Scene 3. Li Qianfeng moves at lightning speed, blurred in motion with a bright trail of energy following his figure. His sword is drawn, aiming for a swift strike, eyes focused with murderous intent. Scene 4. Li Hao, a calm but determined youth, strides toward Li Qianfeng with powerful resolve. His gaze is sharp, his expression fierce, ready to face the attack head-on, his posture radiating confidence and unyielding will. He could already anticipate the opponent, youthful and reckless. If he proposed the challenge, the other party would surely accept, especially in front of the public. But he intended to show that the 4 extra years of his life had not been wasted. Among the crowd, Liu Yuerong and Lin Wujing breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Had Li Hao demanded Li Qianfeng lower his cultivation to match his 14-year-old self, it would have led to a much more contentious exchange. They had prepared themselves for that verbal battle, ready to argue that although Li Qianfeng had reached the divine travel realm at 14, his pursuit of other techniques had slowed his progress. They knew that convincing the audience might not matter. They were ready to argue their way through, leveraging the situation. After all, the guests weren't just there to watch. Verbal exchanges were expected. If the Li family's true dragon didn't possess remarkable strength, then their skill in rhetoric and their network would have to compensate. But Li Hao's boldness spared them from this trouble. It was a blessing. Then go ahead and prepare, Li Qingzhen. Surprised at how readily Li Hao had agreed. Li Hao, usually not too proud, left him somewhat astonished by his quick acceptance. But now, there was nothing left to do but move forward. With a casual wave, Li Qingzhen covered the courtyard's tables, chairs, and houses with his power, stepping back to leave the duel to them. Sword! Li Qianfeng's eyes gleamed as he called out. The metallic sound echoed as a streak of snow-white light streaked through the seats toward him. As the sword gleamed in Murong Qilan's grasp, the woman who had been silently observing Li Qianfeng, her gaze fixed on the poised figure of the young man, her ideal image of a future husband. Her thoughts wandered back to the figure from the demon forest, a memory now resurfacing with the sword in her hand. Meanwhile, Li Qianfeng's eyes shifted warily toward the renowned sword Li Hao possessed, realizing its terrifying sharpness despite its wielder's cultivation limits. The upcoming battle for the true dragon, however, weighed heavily on his mind, as the technique he had acquired required time and Masterian advantage Li Hao held in the form of a powerful blade. When the time came, Li Qianfeng knew he must tread carefully, avoiding the sword's edge for as long as possible. But his voice rang out, demanding, "Draw your sword!" Li Hao, cool and confident, didn't spare a glance at Ren Xian, who stood nearby holding the black sword box, instead turning with a calm smile and summoning a pair of chopsticks from his table. The challenge was clear. The legendary blade would not be drawn today, not by someone unworthy of its power. In Chapter 106, Li Hao's audacity leaves everyone in shock as he faces off against Li Qianfeng, a prodigy from the prestigious Buddhist sect. When Li Hao steps forward with only a chopstick in hand, intending to fight, it's not just youthful arrogance, it's a bold act of complete defiance and disdain. His casual comment, "I'm afraid I might hurt you with a sword, so I'll use this instead," sends ripples through the crowd. Those watching can't believe their eyes show. Could a simple chopstick stand against someone of Li Qianfeng's caliber? The tension at the banquet escalates as Li Hao's brash confidence grows, revealing more than arrogancy, it's an unrelenting mockery of tradition and expectations. Li Tiangang, witnessing the scene, is horrified. He fears the repercussions of such a humiliating defeat for his cousin, which could destroy his reputation and spirit. Meanwhile, others like Jian Wudao and Chu Zhiyue are left speechless, unable to comprehend the audacity of Li Hao, who dares to challenge a revered disciple with nothing but a humble chopstick. It's an extraordinary moment, where one young man's brashness seems to rewrite the very rules of combat. Jian Wudao stood silently, his mind racing as he observed the young man before him. Despite the sword, the poised stance, and the Li family's high expectations, he couldn't shake off the feeling of uncertainty. The thought of the Eternal Night famous sword weighed heavily on him, and his skepticism grew with each passing moment. This boy, he thought, was not the one to walk the path of a true swordsman. It wasn't just a personal belief, it was a bitter truth he'd accepted long ago, especially when recalling that child's defiant eyes. To him, this was another sword, another brilliant talent buried by family ambition. But as the room buzzed with tense anticipation, there was an undercurrent of surprise, even amusement, as those who watched saw in this bold confrontation the reckless brilliance of youth. Was this the madness of genius or its inevitable self-destruction? His thoughts were interrupted as Li Qianfeng's furious eyes locked onto Li Hao, a deep sense of contempt welling in his gaze. "You will pay the price," he hissed, unleashing his sword with fury. The clash of their sword energies rang through the air as Li Hao stood unfazed, his composure unnerving. With a flick of his chopstick, the two forces collided, the shockwaves swirling around them in a display of raw power. But despite the devastation, Li Hao's calm demeanor remained unshaken, leaving those around him to question, was this boy truly lost in his arrogance, or had he already seen a truth they hadn't? In the distance, Li Qingzheng watched, his mind racing as the realization settled. This was not a duel for the past, but a reckoning for the future. At first, he was confident that his opponent could win, but now, doubts crept in as he observed the overwhelming self-assurance on display. The brief exchange, while not utilizing full power, suggested an even match, leaving the onlookers in surprise. Jian Wudao's sharp gaze narrowed slightly as he noticed the graceful precision of the young man's sword strike, its flawless execution making a lasting impression. Meanwhile, Li Qianfeng's eyes grew cold, tinged with a murderous intent as he realized the power his opponent wielded. The realization struck him deeply. His adversary's control over his weapon was something to be reckoned with. Now, no longer holding back, Li Qianfeng raised his aura to its zenith, like a god of war preparing to strike. "Sword technique! Bright moon rising!" he called, unleashing his ultimate move. A terrible sword intent gathered in his palm, its sharp energy extending outward, sending shivers down the spines of all who witnessed it. "It's the Li family's endless sea sword skill," one onlooker whispered in awe. To think he's reached the third level of this technique at such a young age. The skill, honed to perfection, was a weapon even the most seasoned masters struggled to counter. Yet, as Li Hao watched, his expression remained cold and indifferent. This technique, though powerful, was still far from enough. Slowly, he raised a chopstick in his hand, and in an instant, a brilliant light erupted from his fingertips, signaling a devastating counterattack. The moment was poised for something far greater, as his calmness became the calm before the storm. A sudden burst of light illuminates the courtyard, casting a bright moon that cannot be outshone, even by daylight. Jian Wudao, once regretful for not having Li Qianfeng as his disciple, is now stunned. His eyes widen in disbelief as he witnesses something incredible. Is this the genuine realm? His shock is shared by his disciples, who watch in awe as the ancient city wall shines once more, flooding the sky with radiance. Meanwhile, Ren Xian clutches her sword box tightly, her eyes glowing as the silhouette of the young man emerges before her. Li Yuanzhao too can't contain his excitement, his fists clenched in anticipation. But the real shock comes from Lu Yuerong, who freezes, her mocking gaze vanishing as she witnesses the impossible. Even figures like Jiang Haiping and Bodhisattva Lin Wujing, known for their strength, are caught off guard. The true prodigy has emerged on whose swordsmanship is unparalleled, a rare talent in 1,000 years. Amidst all this, Li Qianfeng feels the weight of it most acutely as he faces the undeniable truth of the young man's extraordinary power. Li Hao's display of mastery was nothing short of astonishing. Despite the immense shock he felt, it was clear that reaching such a level of perfection was a rare feat, something his uncle, despite his years, could never achieve. And yet, the youth before him, before Li Qianfeng could even fathom the implications, the bright moon, symbolizing Li Hao's power, descended with the force of a single chopstick. Li Qianfeng, consumed by fury and humiliation, bellowed in a desperate attempt to break the connection. But in the end, it was his own sword that was sent flying, and he crashed into a banquet table, blood spilling from his mouth. His once magnificent brocade garments were now tattered, evidence of how fragile his strength had become in comparison to Li Hao's. The difference in their weapons was glaring. A chopstick, a simple utensil, had deflected his sword, leaving him helpless. Though his object-controlled qi circulation skills were considered top-notch, they were no match for the overwhelming force of Li Hao's control. Li Qianfeng, in his pride, had never anticipated such an overpowering response. Even after years of cultivation, the humiliation stung deeply. What had begun as a contest of skills had turned into a revelation. Li Hao was no longer a mere contender. He was a force of nature. As Li Hao approached him, Li Qianfeng felt the weight of his own inadequacies, his once unshakable confidence now nothing more than an illusion. With fury boiling in his chest, he braced himself, not knowing that this moment would define not only his defeat, but the shifting tides of power between them. A low hum, akin to the evening drum and morning bell, echoed within his mind, signaling the arrival of an overwhelming force. With a surge of power, it exploded from his chest, spreading through his limbs and bones, causing his chi and blood to reach their peak. The dormant meridians within his body broke free, and a terrifying wave of strength flooded them, expanding his power to unimaginable levels. In a heartbeat, the number of meridians inside him soared from 58 to 82, far surpassing even the royal family's techniques. His body felt like it was ablaze with energy, and his mind cleared as the Buddhist teachings resonated within, boosting both his spiritual and physical strength. Now, with power flowing freely, he felt as if he could command the stars themselves. His resolve hardened, and without hesitation, he launched himself toward his opponent with an incredible burst of speed, leaving no room for counterattack or interference. The onlookers were left in awe of his overwhelming force, but just as he charged, his opponent, undeterred, rushed toward him in return, setting the stage for a clash that would test not just their power, but their very will. In a blur of motion, the two figures clashed with such speed that only a faint gray afterimage remained visible. Li Qianfeng swung his sword fiercely, but suddenly he felt an overwhelming power emanating from Li Hao, his gaze widening and shot. The sword aimed at the chopsticks missed, and before he could react, they shot toward his eye socket with terrifying precision. In a desperate attempt to defend, Li Qianfeng quickly used a Buddhist palm technique, combining strikes and defensive skills, but before he could seal the attack, Li Hao moved faster, seizing his arm like a sponge. The power flowing through Li Hao was immense, with 98 meridians and the explosive force of the yin and yang dual pulse causing Li Qianfeng's palm to crush under the weight of it. Just as Li Qianfeng's scream began to rise, Li Hao's chopsticks pierced his eye, sending a shockwave of power in all directions. At that instant, a vast protective force surrounded Li Hao, and a figure cloaked in white, the Buddhist Bodhisattva, appeared, swiftly separating the two. Li Qianfeng was carried a great distance away as Lin Wujing observed coldly, recognizing the ruthlessness of Li Hao's strike. As if fate itself was being challenged, Li Qingzheng, furious and encased in a white robe, arrived. His eyes, once gentle, now radiated a chilling cold that dropped the temperature in the courtyard. Instead of addressing Lin Wujing with the customary honorific, he spoke his name directly, showing deep disrespect in the moment of conflict. Lin Wujing turned his gaze with cold indifference, his words cutting through the air. The contest for the true dragon of the Li family has become a life and death struggle. If I hadn't intervened, Qiankun Vajra would be dead by now. Are you blaming me? His voice, like a sharp blade, made Li Qingzheng hesitate. The anger burning in him was born from Lin's interference, but to blame him now would suggest tacit approval of Li Hao's murderous intent. Li Qingzheng knew he could have acted sooner, even with one eye closed. He tried to salvage his honor, asserting, "This is the Li family's contest. Hao heir knows his place. Bodhisattva, show respect." His words rang with a justification that echoed beyond the walls, as if to make excuses for Li Hao. Yet, his sharp senses, honed through countless battles, knew both Li Hao and Li Qianfeng harbored murderous thoughts. The tension between these two cousins was more than just rivalry. It was a storm brewing beneath the surface. The Li family, with a 1,000-year history, was no stranger to such bloodlines clashing. Yet it was always hidden, controlled. Li Qingzheng's heart sank with a deep sigh. Such conflicts, though painful, were a part of the family's legacy. The Li family's true test was not just one of strength, but of character, where impartial love was their ancestral doctrine. Lin Wujing's sharp snort echoed in the air, his eyes icy as he warned, "Qianfeng's eye needs immediate treatment, or he'll become an idiot. Does the Li family even care?" Lu Yuerong's face drained of color as she heard the name Qianfeng, the once dazzling mistress of the Lu family now overcome with shock. Without hesitation, she surged forward, showing off her power at the 15 Li realm, desperate to reach her son, who lay in agony, a chopstick lodged in his eye, blood spilling profusely. Her heart shattered at the sight. Trembling, she wanted to comfort him, but hesitated. Rage replaced her sorrow as she spun around, eyes burning with fury at Li Hao. "You bastard! He's your cousin! How could you attack him like this?" Li Hao, showing no remorse, only sneered, a bitter smile curving his lips. To him, this was more than family, it was a clash of ambitions. Meanwhile, Chen Hefeng, standing nearby, recoiled at the scene, her hands trembling with a fear she hadn't known since losing a child, her spiritual beads almost snapping under the pressure. In a moment, lives shattered, bonds were tested, and in the bloodied chaos, the past and future seemed destined to collide. The old matriarch of the Li family, having managed the family for years, swiftly regained control of the situation, signaling the guests to leave with a calm yet firm tone. The hour grows late. Now that the true heir of the Li family has been determined, it's best everyone return home, she said, her polite words masking a clear desire for the gossip to end. Despite her composure, many left the banquet with a sense of regret, as the tension between the two younger generations hinted at a deep and intriguing rivalry. He, Jianlan, wasted no time in guiding the departure of the guests, while Li Tiangang, though visibly upset, controlled his anger and personally escorted the others out. Though surprised by the ruthless actions of Li Hao, they weren't entirely shocked. The noble families often hid grudges no one could see. What truly startled them was Li Hao's overwhelming strength far beyond the 15 Li realm they had previously witnessed. The power unleashed by Li Qianfeng, almost fatal in its intensity, was clearly driven by secret techniques or external forces, but before it could fully manifest, Li Hao's strike crushed it. The battle had demonstrated that the true dragon of this generation would not be easily underestimated. Jian Wudao, still in disbelief, couldn't shake the shock. Years ago, Li Hao had shown no interest in the sword, treating it as little more than a twig. How could he have developed such formidable and fierce swordsmanship? The answer lay in his own path, now unfolding before their very eyes. "Quick, save my son!" Liu Yuerong's voice broke the silence, urgency in her words as she turned to Lin Wujing and the old lady, hoping they could help. Chen Hefeng, sensing the gravity of the situation, led the way, swiftly instructing Lin Wujing to take Li Qianfeng to the Qinglian backyard, while also summoning the family's divine healer. Liu Yuerong followed closely as the rest of the women rushed to assess Li Qianfeng's injuries, their faces grim with concern. Li Tiangang, still fuming, returned to the courtyard, his anger directed at Li Hao. He stormed towards him, furious at his actions. "I didn't discipline you, but you've gone too far," he thundered. Li Hao, however, remained unfazed, ready to explain the poison pill, but instead retorted, "Didn't you hear what that woman just called me?" The tension was palpable, but Li Tiangang, enraged yet focused on Qianfeng's condition, stormed off, promising to deal with Li Hao later. As the guests dispersed, Li Qingzheng couldn't help but reflect on Li Hao's impulsiveness. With a faint smile, Li Hao muttered, "She owed me this." His calmness only added to the complexity of the situation as he headed towards the Qinglian backyard, where the past and present were about to collide. Li Qingzheng, left behind, watched his nephew with a flicker of uncertainty, knowing that more than just injuries lay ahead. Li Hao had always been a figure shrouded in mystery, and yet his actions now stirred shock and confusion among those closest to him. In a place where power and legacy often defined one's future, Li Hao's true intentions remained elusive as he walked the path of a man not bound by fate but driven by a deeper personal resolve. His interactions with Li Mingguang and the others unfolded like a delicate dance of tension, with the weight of family expectations pressing down on him. But even in the face of anger and accusations, Li Hao remained composed, showing a rare moment of vulnerability when he admitted his intentions. Was this a calculated move? Or perhaps a quiet rebellion against the world he had known? As the shadows of old family ties and broken oaths loom over him, Li Hao steps forward not to follow in the footsteps of others, but to carve out a destiny of his own. In the backdrop of swirling leaves and fading illusions, one thing becomes clear. Li Hao is no longer just a player in the game. He is the one rewriting the rules. His eyes narrowed with fury, a suffocating aura of immortality radiating from him. Yet, despite the intense anger, he refrained from acting. As a descendant of the Li family's ancestral spirit, striking Li Hao would break his heart's oath. "I thought you had extraordinary talent, that you carried the elegance of Uncle Nine?" he sneered. "But instead, you've shown a disposition unworthy of the Emperor's favor." Li Mingguang's fists clenched, his rage palpable. "Do you think that just because you've earned the title of True Dragon, you can act with such arrogance?" Li Sibei, stepping closer, coldly glared at Li Hao. But Li Hao remained composed, his voice calm as he responded, "I have my reasons. If you wish to understand, follow me to the backyard." "What reason could justify hurting your own brother?" Li Mingguang retorted. Li Yuanzhao, a younger voice, hesitated before speaking. Perhaps Hao has his reasons?" Li Hao smiled faintly at the young boy, and the warmth that followed dispelled the strange tension between them. Reassured, Li Yuanzhao was about to speak again when Li Sibei interrupted with a chilling command. "Quiet! You're too young to understand!" His words left Li Yuanzhao speechless. Meanwhile, Li Wushuang and Li Yun, siblings, approached. Their emotions conflicted as they observed Li Hao. Li Wushuang recalled the harsh slap Li Hao had given her days ago, though painful. It had been a lesson, not an act of malice. Despite her anger and confusion, she recognized the difference between discipline and cruelty, a sharp contrast to the present moment. Li Hao, now known as the True Dragon after defeating Li Qianfeng, exudes a chilling aura that disturbs those around him, including his timid cousin Li Yun. The shadow of fear he once held now grows ever larger. Whispers about Li Hao's lineage from the great wilderness heaven, a place of fierce demons and ancient beasts, stir curiosity and doubt. As Li Hao faces these comments, his once confident and composed demeanor begins to show cracks, especially when he learns of his mother's hidden background, a secret that was never shared with him. In a world steeped in mysteries and betrayals, Li Hao is not just a victim of his past, but a player who must redefine his destiny amidst the secrets of his bloodline and the weight of expectations that threaten to overwhelm him. A breaking point approaches, where the line between legacy and selfhood blurs, and Li Hao must decide whether to follow a fate laid out for him or forge his own path from the ashes of broken oaths. Oh, I forgot, you and your dad have been apart since you were young, and your dad probably couldn't bring himself to say it. After all, he is a savage barbarian. With a smack, Li Hao suddenly lashed out with a slap, and 5 bright red handprints appeared on Li Rumeng's face, causing her to bleed and a tooth to spill out. Li Hao. Next to him, Li Zhongying came to his senses, saw his sister beaten, and was furious. He glared at Li Hao with his soul manifestation emerging above his head. However, the heroic spirit he inherited was not of the Li family ancestors, but of the Wang family. Therefore, if he made a move against Li Hao, he wouldn't be breaking his heart oath. Yet, his rage was forcefully suppressed under the icy gaze of Li Hao, and his poised body involuntarily clenched his teeth and stopped. Thinking about how this fierce man had nearly killed Li Qianfeng in public just now, and disregarding Li Qianfeng's identity, he was also the direct disciple of the infinite Buddha, Lord, yet he still wasn't taken seriously by Li Hao. He was bound to have no advantage if he struck, and at this moment, there were no family elders to support him around. They had already run off to the Qinglian backyard. You! Li Mingguang saw Li Hao suddenly make a move, caught off guard, and considering that Li Hao's slap was unimaginably fast, seemingly even faster than when he attacked Li Qianfeng before, he didn't react in time. But when he came to his senses, he was so enraged, his eyes turned red. Do you really think I wouldn't dare to lay a hand on you? If I knew it would come to this, I shouldn't have listened to Mother. I should enter the competition for the true dragon of the Li family too. At this moment, Li Hao was not in the mood at all, and coldly said, "If you want to compete, you must be qualified to compete. Don't talk as if you're letting it go." Li Mingguang was taken aback, somewhat at a loss for words. Li Hao's eyes coldly fixed on Li Rumeng. "Insult my mother again, and I will make you regret it for the rest of your life." Seeing Li Hao's terrifying gaze, the spoiled and arrogant Li Rumeng felt scared and grabbed her face in a mixture of anger and fright. Li Hao, no longer concerned with seeking answers from others, begins his journey toward confronting his past. The secrets of his mother's origins, buried in the mysterious great wilderness heaven, now fuel his rage. His internal turmoil pushes him to take drastic actions against those who wronged him. The memories that have been twisted and hidden from him only deepen his resolve to uncover the truth. As he heads towards the Green Lotus courtyard, his intentions become clear. He is done pretending, and the facade of loyalty crumbles. The weight of his decisions bears down on those around him, especially Bian Rusho, who watches in shock as this once kind figure now radiates cold authority. Ren Xian, confused yet loyal, follows him, clutching the black sword box, her heart racing as she realizes the path her master is about to walk. In this moment, Li Hao chooses to reshape his destiny, no longer shackled by the expectations of his past. The quiet fury brewing within him is a prelude to a transformation that will change everything. In the Qinglian backyard, the godly doctor of the Li family, an old man with humble origins but exceptional medical skills, was called upon to treat a grievous injury. Despite being the son of a concubine, his expertise in medicine had earned him a high status within the family. As the tension in the courtyard rose, Lu Yue Rong, nervously clutching her handkerchief, stood among the concerned onlookers, her heart racing. The treatment, although fraught with danger, was successful thanks to divine medicine from the Li family's treasure trove and Lin Wujing's assistance. The bleeding in the young man's left eye ceased, and though his vision was impaired, there was hope for regeneration in the future. As the divine physician prepared to leave, he encountered Li Hao, a direct descendant of the Li family. With a reassuring smile, the physician confirmed that the wound was stable, offering a sense of calm. Despite the injury, Li Hao knew that the young man's talent would allow him to recover, his journey to the immortal realm still within reach. As Li Qianfeng's wounds slowly healed, Lu Yue Rong rushed to his side, her voice trembling with concern. "Does it hurt? Can you see clearly? Is there anywhere else you were hurt?" Her motherly affection was palpable, a tender display of genuine care. Yet, Li Tiangang stood nearby, his face clouded with tension, like a thorn was embedded in his back. Despite his body calming down, the energy drained from his primary meridian left him utterly exhausted, his face pale and weak. He looked at his mother, his voice barely a whisper. "Mother, I'm fine." But Liu Yue-rong, unable to contain her emotions, let tears fall freely, only to quickly wipe them away and turn her anger toward Li Tiangang. Li Tiangang! Her voice was fierce, full of grief and fury. Normally affectionate toward him, she now addressed him by his name, a clear sign of her deep resentment. Look at what kind of son you've raised. Filled with ambition, ungrateful despite everything I've done for you. Her voice rang through the courtyard, silencing all around her. Chen Feng left for the mountains at 6 and never came back. Yet it was always me who visited him. They met only once, and yet you struck him with such malice. Is it for the true dragon seat? If you want it, I'll give it to your son. Why provoke mine? Li Tiangang stood silent, his face twisted in shame, unable to respond, for even though he had not incited such actions, the damage was done. Li Tiangang's wrath echoed through the courtyard as he faced his son, Li Hao, whose actions had ignited a storm of anger and frustration. His words, sharp as a blade, condemned Hao's behavior, calling for an apology to his second aunt. But Li Hao, unfazed, entered the scene with a calm that contrasted his father's fury. The tension was palpable as the family confronted the unraveling of deep-seated expectations and grudges. His mother, Liu Yue-rong, tearfully confronted He Jianlan, challenging her leniency toward the young man's impulsive actions. The coldness of the exchange highlighted the emotional chasm that divided them. Li Tiangang, burdened by his failure to discipline his son, took responsibility, even as he acknowledged the complexities of their family dynamics. But it was in the quiet moments that followed when father and son locked eyes that the true depth of their fractured relationship became clear. The storm was not just one of anger. It was a storm of shattered expectations, missteps, and the slow, painful acknowledgement that no one could escape the consequences of their actions. Li Hao stood in the courtyard, his expression devoid of emotion as he coldly addressed his second mother. Let the second aunt come out, and while you're at it, have grandfather and grandmother come out as well, to witness. His voice carried no warmth, yet his words were a summons to confront the past. Li Tiangang, misinterpreting this as a sign of Li Hao's repentance, softened his angry stance, though there was no need to announce this to anyone. The family was already gathering in the courtyard. As relatives like Li Mingguang and Bian Rushou made their way in, the tension in the air grew palpable. The courtyard filled with the Li family's direct descendants, and the older uncles, Li Xuanli and Li Fenghua, exchanged complex glances, their gazes lingering on Li Hao with a mix of kinship and curiosity. They saw traces of Li Junye in him, but unlike Li Junye, Li Hao was willing to fight against those who had wronged him. When Li Hao locked eyes with his second mother, Liu Yue-rong, who had often feigned affection, the pretense was gone. Her face twisted with anger and hatred. Yet, in that moment, her fury seemed justified to the gathered family. Li Hao sneered, "Second mother, do you enjoy the karma of your past deeds now?" Liu Yue-rong froze, her expression faltering as Li Hao's words struck her deeply. Her mind raced as the family turned their eyes toward her. Still, she retorted, "You've harmed Qianfeng and your cousin, and now you seek to argue?" Li Hao, no longer willing to play her game, responded with a chilling laugh. "When I was a mere child, you poisoned me, ruining my divine blood. Have you forgotten that?" The words sent a cold shiver through Liu Yue-rong, her heart quaking under Li Hao's piercing gaze. The room was stunned, the atmosphere thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Liu Yue-rong's mind raced, thoughts colliding like storm. She couldn't believe the accusation, yet the words, so sharp and deliberate, echoed in her head. "What are you talking about? This has nothing to do with me." She spat, barely concealing the tremor of fear beneath her indignant defiance. Li Hao's calm gaze, piercing and cold, made her pulse quicken. She had tried to bury her secrets for years, but now the truth threatened to unravel everything. His words, so simple yet devastating, sliced through her carefully constructed facade. If you don't want people to know, don't do it. The weight of the past clung to her like a shadow, suffocating her every attempt to justify her actions. Lin Wujing's voice broke the tension, as cold as the steel in Li Hao's eyes. What had been a quiet conspiracy was now an open declaration, and Liu Yue-rong was caught in the storm of her own making. Li Hao's defiant words shook the tension in the air as he boldly challenged the sacred ideals of Mount Wuliang and its revered bodhisattva. Confronted by Lin Wujing's anger, Li Hao smirked, questioning the true nature of these entities, suggesting a deeper, darker connection that the others were blind to. With a flash of confidence, he turned to Liu Yue-rong, his second mother, revealing that he remembered everything from his early childhood details that no one thought possible for someone his age to recall. He reminded the gathered assembly of intimate moments like the pouch embroidered for him by the ninth lady, or the care he received from the fifth lady, drawing shocked glances from his family, especially the women. Li Hao's words stirred old memories buried deep within them, as if breaking open the vault of the past, leaving everyone to wonder if this young man had truly grasped the weight of their hidden histories. In his quest for the truth, he proved that some legacies cannot be erased, even with time's passing. The child's prodigious intelligence astonishes all who witness it, but it is the extraordinary depth of his memories that truly leaves them stumped. He recalls events from when he was just a bobby of feet so rare it borders on supernatural. In the setting of the Divine General Mansion, where sensitivity to demonic presences is heightened, such an ability raises suspicions. Could this child have been influenced by dark forces? But this extraordinary memory is not completely unheard of. As the madams exchange glances, their attention turns to Li Yue Rong, whose thoughts are clouded with fear. She realizes with growing horror that this child has always remembered everything, even the moments he had smiled and acted innocent in her presence, all the while holding a quiet, unspoken grudge. The years of pretending were nothing but a carefully crafted facade, a monster, a demon. Her mind races with these thoughts, but outwardly she maintains composure, knowing full well that admitting to any part of the truth now would ruin everything for her family's future. She scoffs at the evidence presented before her, dismissing it with a pointed remark, "This is nothing more than a clever ruse." He could have easily learned this from someone else. Yet, despite her words, the chill in her heart tells her that this child is no mere innocent. Li Hao's confrontation with Lu Yue Rong is a moment of high tension and quiet revelations. She questions why, if he believes she poisoned him years ago, he didn't report it then. Her words carry weight, for if Li Hao had been a child, his claims might have been dismissed as innocent misunderstanding, a child's fantasy. But the present Li Hao, now a young man with the potential to ascend to the title of True Dragon, holds the power to fabricate lies. The suspicion rises as he responds coldly, revealing that at the time, his words would have been ignored, dismissed as the ramblings of a child. With no parents to defend him and no evidence to back his claims, Li Hao was forced into silence. But he anticipated the doubts that would arise, and knowing that his memories were his only proof, he chose to bide his time, planning to reveal the truth at the right moment. Yet, his plans are now thwarted, leaving him with no choice but to navigate the delicate web of accusations, hidden truths, and the ghosts of the past. Jianlan's gaze shifted between Li Hao and Lu Yue Rong, her eyes gradually becoming cold. Li Hao, once a child she had watched grow, shocked her with his words and actions today. Yet, despite everything, she chose to believe in him. The ladies present were filled with uncertainty, unable to reach a conclusion as the debate continued without proof. If what Li Hao said was true, considering his past actions, a chill ran through their hearts. This young man's mind was far too sharp for their comfort. Li Qingzhong, deeply familiar with Li Hao, observed the youth carefully and came to an understanding, realizing that Li Hao's words rang true, reflecting his nature in the game of chess. Chen Hefeng, freshly emerged from seclusion, had not been aware of the truth. Her understanding was superficial, and the discovery of this shocking secret left her feeling utterly ignorant. The more she looked at the youth, the more she was reminded of Jiulong, a connection she could not ignore, causing her to quietly favor him. "You claim I wasted your divine blood," she said. "But when your father's message reached us from the frontier pass, everyone learned that he had attained immortality at 23. As the atmosphere grew tense, Lu Yue Rong bit her lip and added, "Before that, who could have known about your father's situation or the possibility that your divine blood would awaken?" A subtle shift in the crowd's expressions marked the realization. Could it be that Lu Yue Rong had known in advance? The attention now turned to Li Tiangang, as the truth seemed poised to surface. Li Tiangang's expression was a storm of anger, his gaze unwavering under the weight of judgment from everyone around him. Despite being the father of Li Hao, he couldn't afford to show favoritism. As the head of the Ministry of Punishment for years, he had always held the law above all. Without the law, there could be no order, no continuity. He spoke firmly. "My sister-in-law must not be aware of my situation." The room exhaled a collective sigh as Lu Yue Rong, relieved, remarked, "At least you still have some conscience, Li Tiangang. It seems Qianfeng's injury wasn't caused by you. Perhaps he fabricated this story with someone else." But Li Hao's face hardened, his eyes burning with accusation. "Are you sure nothing slipped? She must have known. I've heard it myself. How could it be untrue?" Li Tiangang faltered, his mind tracing back to his secret attainment of immortality, something only his wife knew. But could she have let it slip? Seeing his silence, Li Hao's disappointment cut deep, not just because others doubted him, but because even his father refused to side with him. It was clear now no one, not even family, could be trusted. Create an image. Manhwa-style comic. Scene 1. A young boy, Li Hao, stands in the center of a vast courtyard with his broken sword raised high. The skies above swirl with intense sword intent, the aura surrounding him like an ocean, glowing with sword chi that reaches up to the heavens. His focused black eyes show immense concentration as his dark robes flow in the wind. Scene 2. A wide shot of the courtyard, with people in awe watching from the sidelines. The landscape is bathed in a divine light emanating from the sword. Scene 3. Close-up of Li Hao's face, his expression a mixture of determination and inner conflict as the immense power surges around him. Scene 4. The sword intent continues to rise, casting long shadows over the courtyard, as if the heavens themselves are watching this moment of destiny. 16:9 ratio. Your son captured the true dragon, and now he dares to be so arrogant and rebellious. If this continues, I fear not the demons will destroy the entire Li residence, but rather, it will be him. Lu Yue Rong's words were filled with venom, each syllable meant to pierce like a blade. Exactly. The tension was palpable, and silence fell over the room, until a clear voice cut through the air. Li Fenghua's eyes darted to the speaker, ready to reprimand, only to see his daughter, Li Ruming, running towards him, her face marked with a bright red handprint. His expression changed instantly as anger flared in his eyes. "Who did this to you?" he demanded. Li Ruming pointed furiously at Li Hao. "It was him! He's arrogant, domineering! I merely spoke a few words and he hit me." Her voice trembled with anger, adding, "If not for Brother Mingguang and the others, he might have even killed me." The room fell into shocked silence, eyes now shifting towards Li Hao and Li Mingguang. Li Mingguang hesitated. Although he was angry with Li Hao, he knew the truth that Li Ruming had instigated the conflict, and while Li Hao had slapped her, it wasn't as serious as she claimed. He began to speak, but was interrupted by a crisp, sudden sound. A bright red handprint appeared on Li Hao's face. The entire courtyard froze, all eyes turning towards the one who had delivered the blow, Li Tiangang. His slap was brutal, sending Li Hao staggering, blood spilling from his mouth despite his sturdy frame. Li Hao's eyes widened in shock as he gazed up at the towering figure before him, whose glare was filled with fury and authority. "You've gone too far," Li Tiangang thundered. "You've been associating with fools, visiting brothels, and disgracing us all. How have you been living these years?" His voice grew colder with every word. "Everyone pampers you out of respect for me, and no one dares correct you. But today, I will teach you a lesson." Li Tiangang took another step forward. Li Qingzeng, his face filled with concern, intervened. "Tiangang, we must handle this carefully. Let's investigate this thoroughly first." But Li Tiangang, cold as ice, dismissed him without a glance. "This is my family's matter. Don't interfere." At that moment, Bian Rushe rushed to Li Hao's side, her face pale with shock as she tried to protect him. Just then, a white figure dashed forward, standing before Li Hao as if to guard him, the little white fox. Fear glimmered in its eyes, but it bared its teeth defiantly at Li Tiangang. Enraged, Li Tiangang waved dismissively, unleashing a force that struck the fox, sending it crashing into the courtyard wall with a painful yelp, its fate unknown as it fell beyond sight. Li Hao's mind snapped back to reality with a violent jolt, his pupils shrinking to tiny pinpricks as the weight of his emotions hit him like a thunderclap. His gaze, burning with rage, locked onto the figure before him. With a roar that echoed through the air, he unleashed an overwhelming aura like an ocean's depth, sweeping all in its path with a violent gust. In an instant, his body shot forward, darting like a cannonball through the air. But he stopped just before the little white fox, his longtime companion. The sight of the fox on the brink of death tore at his heart as he gently cradled it, his eyes filled with sorrow and desperation. Memories flooded his mind of the fox being an orphan just like him, their bond unspoken but deeply felt. In a voice full of pain and pleading, he called out to his uncle, asking him to save the little creature, the one constant in his lonely life. Understanding the depth of Li Hao's attachment, his uncle moved swiftly, his energy enveloping the fox in an attempt to restore its fragile life. The moment was tense, filled with a blend of grief and determination, as Li Hao stood ready to face whatever fate awaited them. The emotional weight of this moment hinted at the battles to come, not just against enemies, but against the shadows of his past and his own destiny. He cradled the little white fox gently, declaring, "I'll go find the divine doctor." With swift steps, he turned to leave, only to glance back at Li Hao and warn, "Hao don't act rashly." Li Hao offered a wry smile and expressed his gratitude to his uncle. "Thank you for saving us." Then, as a sign of deep respect, he knelt and kowtowed. Li Qingzeng hesitated for a moment, sensing an undercurrent in the air, before urgently stating, "I must save this little one. Its heart meridian hasn't dissipated. There's still hope." With that, he vanished from Li Hao's sight. Meanwhile, Li Tiangang, seeing Li Hao's actions, scoffed, "It's just a demon beast. If it dies, it dies. What's the big deal?" His eyes burned with anger as he continued, You value the life of a demon so highly, but harm your elder brother and strike your younger sister, how laughable. Li Hao, trembling slightly, slowly rose to his feet. The sky seemed to darken as an ominous aura surrounded him. He turned to face the towering figure, his eyes bloodshot and filled with unshed tears, as though mourning a loss too great for words. The recent strike that had been aimed at the little white fox had also shattered something deep within him, the child he had waited for 14 years. That blow had killed the hope he had cherished. Li Tiangang! Li Hao's voice, tinged with sorrow and rage, echoed through the air. From this day on, you and I have no ties of father and son. Li Tiangang's fury reached its peak as he demanded, "Are you really going to cut ties with your own father for a mere beast?" Li Hao, filled with cold resolve, shot back. "Didn't you hear how I survived all these years? It was because Xiaoru was always by my side." With eyes burning with rage, Li Hao declared that Xiaoru meant far more to him than his father. This provoked Li Tiangang, who trembled with anger, admitting his failure in raising his son properly. He blamed himself for bringing shame to the family, but vowed to set things right. With a heavy heart, he moved toward Li Hao, determined to confront him. Chen Hefeng attempted to intervene, urging caution, but Li Tiangang's mind was made up. He explained that, despite his own unfulfilled debts, he could no longer indulge Li Hao's obstinacy. As he marched on, others tried to stop him, but it seemed nothing could hold back his relentless pursuit of what he believed was the right course of action. In the midst of chaos and the clash of powerful wills, Li Hao stands resolute, defying the burden placed upon him by others. When Li Tiangang speaks of repayment, Li Hao laughs bitterly, questioning the very notion that his life can be used for such a cause. His anger is palpable as he rejects the idea of being a mere pawn in someone else's game, his fists clenched, eyes burning with fury. The tension escalates as Li Hao faces the imposing figure of Li Tiangang, who declares that without him, Li Hao would not even exist. With a fierce resolve, Li Hao challenges his elder, stepping forward with a force that shakes the very ground beneath them. The clash is not just physical, but spiritual, as Li Hao taps into a well of untamed power, unleashing his full potential. His roar echoes as he faces his adversary, embodying defiance and freedom from the chains of obligation. In that moment, he is not bound by filial piety or the weight of expectations. He is a force to be reckoned with, a tempest that will not be controlled. The scene is a striking symbol of personal freedom, a battle not just for survival but for identity and destiny. Li Hao's fists cleaved through the overwhelming power with a force so immense that it shattered the atmosphere itself. The gathered onlookers were left in awe, instantly recognizing the half-step invincible fist, a technique once thought exclusive to Li Musu. Even Li Qianfeng, standing by Lu Yuerong's side, couldn't hide his amazement, his eyes flashing with a mix of shock and envy. Meanwhile, Li Tiangang, enraged by Li Hao's defiance, unleashed a blazing golden palm attack, powerful enough to suppress the strongest warriors. Yet Li Hao, undeterred, retaliated with an even fiercer punch, his chi force surging to unimaginable heights. The air thundered as the two forces collided, shaking the very ground beneath them. Li Tiangang was forced back, his shock evident. He'd expected to dominate with his palm, but Li Hao's strength surpassed all expectation. With a cold fury in his eyes, Li Tiangang vowed to break Li Hao's arrogance once and for all. The tension built as their clash reached a boiling point, a father-son showdown now inevitable, setting the stage for a battle that would define their destinies. In this intense and powerful scene, father and son face off in a moment of brutal confrontation. Li Tiangang, driven by rage, clashes with Li Hao, his son, in a battle of wills. As their fists collide, the earth trembles, and the force of their strike sends shockwaves through the air, leaving both warriors injured. What surprises everyone is that Li Tiangang, a figure of immense strength, suffers a wound, something that should be impossible for anyone beneath the level of a grandmaster to inflict. This unexpected turn of events reveals a deeper truth. Li Tiangang's betrayal of his oath has resulted in a backlash, a punishment for harming his own flesh and blood. Both father and son are now bound by the consequences of their actions, and the pain they feel is not just physical, but tied to broken bonds and shattered loyalties. As blood spills, the reader is left questioning the true cost of their conflict and what lies beyond the clash of fists. The story is not just about power, but about the deep emotional and moral consequences of the choices we make, even when faced with overwhelming strength. The divine soul stood like a god, majestic and fierce, towering over everything with its brilliant golden form. With disdain in its eyes, it regarded the 6 desolations below as if invincible. The members of the Li family watched in awe. Lin Wujing, solemn, recognized the might of the true dragon from the previous generation, even if second in line. What a powerful force, he thought. But others like Chen Hefeng and Li Fenghua couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. The family was torn by the power struggle, with Li Hao in the center, standing tall against the forces trying to control it. As he laughed defiantly, the tension in the courtyard grew, threatening to boil over. Li Tiangang's cold voice echoed, asserting that only severe punishment could prevent future failures. The battle, the struggle, and the choices would shape the future. But the fight was not just one of power, it was a battle for destiny itself. In an intense burst of power, his entire body trembled as the force within his mind surged uncontrollably, manifesting his soul in its entirety for the first time. Behind him, a monumental figure began to take shape, a shimmering presence that towered above him, his very own law manifestation. The colossal figure was a reflection of himself, clad in the same robes, yet its aura exuded the wisdom of years spent contemplating chess and painting rather than the commanding force of a general. Standing over 100 meters tall, the figure seemed to oversee the entire Green Lotus courtyard, dwarfing everything in its presence. The air vibrated with an overwhelming, majestic aura, causing even distant onlookers, still miles away from the Divine General Mansion, to halt and witness the spectacle. As the golden figure loomed, a sharp observer saw through the layers of Space Jian Wudao, with his piercing gaze, recognized something beyond the surface. Was it really the young man? This mysterious manifestation, both terrifying and awe-inspiring, raised more questions than answers, leaving the onlookers in stunned silence. This was no mere display of power. It was the birth of something far greater, a force that could reshape the very destiny of the one who wielded it. Jian Wudao's gaze sharpened as his pupils contracted, and a surge of power lifted his body high above Qingzhou City, his eyes fixed on the Divine Mansion. The scene was monumental, the manifestation of heaven and earth's law, towering over everything. In the Green Lotus courtyard, the vastness of this power rendered all who gazed upon it insignificant, with even Li Tiangang's towering divine soul appearing but a small fragment before the immense force of Li Hao's soul manifestation. This spectacle left everyone stunned, unable to grasp the enormity of what they were witnessing. Li Qianfeng, overwhelmed, struggled to comprehend the magnitude of Li Hao's power, especially remembering how he had been defeated so easily by a mere chopstick wielded by him. Despite his previous belief that he could stand against Li Hao, the sight before him shattered his confidence. Even Li Tiangang, who had long harbored disdain for Li Hao and his mysterious soul, felt a surge of awe mixed with anger. This wasn't merely Li Hao. He felt as though he was facing the weight of the world itself. Li Tiangang's disbelief turned to frustration, for as a father, he couldn't accept the overwhelming presence his own son now held. In his heart, the rigid order of a strict father and devoted mother must be upheld, and Li Hao's defiance only deepened his rage. The truth of the matter was clear. Li Hao, once thought of as a rebellious figure, had indeed shown skill far beyond what anyone had imagined. Li Tiangang stands undaunted, his eyes burning with an unstoppable will. Even though his cultivation has dropped drastically, the immortal realm blood still courses through him, making him a formidable opponent despite his weakened state. With a bellow, his divine soul manifests a blade of divine might, ready to cut down anyone who dares challenge him. Li Hao, unyielding as ever, counters with his own heaven and earth law manifestation, a majestic force of golden light. Yet, despite the overwhelming power of his manifestation, Li Tiangang's relentless assault slices through the energy with ease. As the battle intensifies, Li Hao realizes the flaw in his grand law manifestation. It's too large, and its power is scattered. In an instant, he refines it, concentrating all his might into a single, explosive strike. With fury in his heart, he prepares for the final clash. In a world where powers clash and legacies define one's path, Li Hao stands at the precipice of destiny. With the law manifestation condensing to a formidable size, similar to Li Tiangang's divine soul, Li Hao faces a dilemma. Lacking divine weapons, he looks toward Ren Xian holding the famed sword box. His intention is to summon the renowned Eternal Knight, but the thought of the grief it would cause an old woman, who had once gifted him the sword with earnest affection, holds him back. Instead, Li Hao reaches into his past, calling upon a weapon chosen long ago with his second uncle. This sword, not as renowned as the top 10, is no less potentable to slay immortal realm great demons, a fitting match for the threat before him. With a commanding roar, the sword golden, mighty, and alive, with a fierce aura races toward him from the courtyard. As it enters his grasp, the sword absorbs the energy of his law manifestation, growing into a shining giant of divine light. With a single strike, Li Hao cleaves the air, his sword lighting up the darkening world, while a magnificent bright moon emerges, casting a brilliant radiance across the battlefield. In this moment, his soul surges with both clarity and purpose, ready to carve his own fate, in a world where power and fate intertwine. The moment Li Tiangang's divine soul is enveloped by the radiant bright moon, everything seems to pause in disbelief. Li Xuanli's shock is evident as he witnesses the tremendous might of Li Hao's law manifestation, a force that not only defies expectations but also brings forth the overwhelming fear of its creator. The onlookers, including Lisa Bei, cannot help but feel dwarfed by the raw talent Li Hao exudes, far surpassing even their childhood idols. As the bright moon shatters under the power of a red light, Li Tiangang's chilling proclamation echoes, calling Li Hao's power inferior. Yet, before the law manifestation is struck, a sudden intervention by Li Qingzheng shields it. His shock mirrored by the knowledge of the ancient soul manifestation Li Hao commands and ability few could ever hope to understand. What follows is a testament to Li Hao's strength. His path not defined by the past, but one where he shapes his own legacy. Li Hao, once considered a mere prodigy, now stands on the edge of an extraordinary future. Hailing from the prestigious Li family, he possesses the rare potential to become a Sagan honor, not seen for centuries in the Dayu dynasty. But such greatness comes at a price. Tensions rise within the family as Li Hao's extraordinary talents are met with both admiration and fear. Li Tiangang, his fifth uncle, argues that the young man's power could lead to uncontrollable chaos, while Li Qingzheng, his elder, defends him, calling out the harshness of the discipline imposed on him. As the family quarrels, Li Hao remains silent, his thoughts focused elsewhere. The plot thickens, not with the clash of swords, but with the emotional trials of loyalty, identity, and the burden of legacy. With his talent and power, Li Hao is poised to not only break old oaths but forge his own path, free from the expectations of those who came before him. The storm within his family is only the beginning of the battle that will shape his destiny. Li Hao's journey is defined by inner struggle and transformation, as he faces trials that test his spirit and resolve. In a pivotal moment, Li Hao's unwavering focus on protecting those he cares for, like Xiao Ru, takes precedence over the power plays surrounding him. His calm smile hides a deeper understanding of the forces at work, refusing to let others manipulate his fate. The intense dialogue between him and his fifth uncle, Li Qingzheng, reveals the complex layers of family duty and personal choices. Despite the pressure, Li Hao stands firm, even as his father's legacy looms large. The scene is charged with tension, balancing the weight of ancestral obligations with Li Hao's desire to carve his own path. It is a moment where broken vows and unspoken truths stir, pushing Li Hao closer to forging his own destiny, no longer bound by the past but ready to shape a future of his own making. Li Qingzheng's harsh words echoed in the courtyard. If your father were alive, he would have taught you a lesson you'd never forget. The words struck Chen Hefeng deeply, leaving him visibly shaken. Li Tiangang, his face filled with fury, ordered his fifth uncle aside. Li Qingzheng, disappointed but composed, warned, "You will regret this," before stepping away from the confrontation. The stakes were high. Li Hao couldn't afford any injuries, especially since the ancestral hall, guarded by weak spirits, was vulnerable. If chaos struck, it could destroy everything. Yet, despite his retreat, Li Tiangang saw a glimmer of potential in Li Hao, acknowledging his understanding of the bigger picture. But the time for words was over. With a cold grin, Li Hao unleashed his ultimate sword form, Endless Sea, ready to face the storm of destiny head-on. It was a clash of not just power, but the very will to forge a future where broken oaths and shattered bonds gave rise to new paths. Li Qingzheng shouted furiously. Your father died early, otherwise today he would surely teach you a severe lesson. At those words, the expression on Chen Hefeng's face in the courtyard turned a shade paler. Li Tiangang's teeth were clenched, eyes blazing with fury. Fifth uncle, move aside! Li Qingzheng looked at him with a profound disappointment and said deeply, You will regret this! With those words, he stepped out and left the battlefield. Just as Li Hao had said, he couldn't afford to get injured because of this and break his heart oath. Now that Li Mushu was not present at the mansion, only he was left to stand guard. If he were to get injured at this moment and someone took advantage of the chaos to attack the mansion, the ancestral spirits in the ancestral hall would suffer a severe blow. These spirits were merely wisps of remaining souls and not the divine souls from their heydays. A martial artist of the Four Stands realm could sweep through them. This was why he had spent years sitting in the ancestral hall, not leaving his seclusion. Although the Divine General Mansion had accumulated authority over many years to deter aggressors, those who coveted it were no ordinary people. You have the awareness to consider the big picture. You're not beyond hope after all. Once Li Qingzheng left, Li Tiangang coldly said to Li Hao. Li Hao started laughing, then his eyes flickered with a cold light. Enough talk. Let's have at it. Li Tiangang shouted angrily, still so defiant. His divine soul suddenly lunged with the knife towards Li Hao, but Li Hao also wielded his sword, this time not Bright Moon Rising, but Endless Sea. This was the fourth form, and also the ultimate sword strike. Endless Sea, heaven is company. As the sword in the law manifestation's hand gathered its momentum, boundless sword intent seemed to surge down from the highest skies. This sword intent was like tides, and the sword chi was like an ocean, as if the heavens and earth were shrouded in the light of the sword. Such an extreme state of the sword path shocked everyone in the courtyard. This child had attained the 15 Li realm, and yet cultivated his sword path to such a terrifying extent.